Super trainers are quite a hot topic lately, with more and more shoe companies wanting to have this type of shoe in their lineup, and there's a race on to see who can come up with the most innovative thing in this segment. So, what are super trainers? In short, they're shoes that to some extent use technologies most commonly found in racing shoes. It could be a carbon plate, it could be some kind of special foam, etc. Generally, the idea is that they are everyday trainers with some wow factor. Asics has their Super Blasts, which heavily utilize the foam from their racing shoes. Adidas has Prime X, which not only has carbon plate but also a thick layer of racing foam. And every month there are more proposals from other companies. Today, let's take a closer look at one of them on Cloudmonster Hyper. Before I dive into my feelings about running in the on Cloudmonster Hyper shoes, I have to mention that I bought these shoes myself and no one influenced the opinions I'm presenting here in this video. Let's start by looking at the technical aspects of the Hypers. The upper is made of a breathable mesh material, very soft to the touch and honestly giving off a very premium vibe. It's highly flexible in the front and middle part of the shoe, with a bit more reinforcement at the back to help keep the foot in place. It's a seamless upper, so you shouldn't worry about the rubbing, and indeed, I didn't experience any issues with that. The lacing system is non-standard with slightly protruding eyelets here instead of regular holes, but honestly, it doesn't seem to have drastic effect on foot lockdown. The laces are coated with silicone on one side to prevent them from coming undone during runs, though I have a feeling it doesn't work that well because I almost always have to retie them during my runs, which didn't happen as often with other shoes, so that's kind of strange. The laces are also very long. It was only after tying the heel lock that their length was just right for me and they didn't flop around. The tongue is made of a thin material, rather minimalist. It's attached to the sides of the shoe, but only about halfway down its length. Yet, I didn't have any major issues with it. Though I have to admit that during longer runs, let's say 15k or more, I did experience the tongue slightly bunching up. However, due to the material it's made of, it wasn't a problem for me. The heel counter is lined with soft material, very comfortable, but it's not overly plush either. For me, it's just right. It's also quite stiff here, maintaining the structure of the shoe, and has a standard height. It shouldn't cause any rubbing. The midsole is the main highlight of these shoes. It's what allows us to classify the Hypers as super trainers. We have two foams here. Helion foam, known from regular Cloudmonsters, in the rear part of the shoe and a bit of it in the front, in the familiar CloudTec technology that's known from all of the on shoes. And Helion HF, which is P-Bax foam. Here, the foam known from the Cloudboom Echo Racing shoes in the front part of the shoe, and it's this second foam that's supposed to make running faster in the Hypers more enjoyable. The Helion foam provides us with considerable cushioning, but at the same time, you don't feel that softness overly, so your foot doesn't sink into the foam with every step. And that's the norm for on shoes, so if you're a fan, you will feel right at home here. It took me a few training sessions to get used to it, but once I did, I really liked the feeling of cushioning in this shoe. The foam under the midfoot and toes, this white one, Helion HF foam, is denser and firmer, and if you land on this part on your foot, you'll definitely feel the benefits of this foam. For those who run from the heel, the benefits will be practically non-existent, and I would advise against buying these shoes for them. It's better to stick with regular Cloudmonsters if you run from the heel. The outsole is covered with rubber in a fairly standard on way with a lot of exposed foam, especially on the inner side of the shoe. The rubber has a flat tread, typical for asphalt, but despite that, the Hyper shoes also perform well on forest trails. I didn't experience any slipping, and the condition of the outsole after fairly intensive use on different surfaces is quite good. The rubber is a bit worn on the inner side of the midfoot, but that's normal wear and tear. The shape of the outsole is a rocker, which is supposed to facilitate the rolling of the foot on the ground, giving these shoes slightly more dynamic character, but I wouldn't overstate the impact of this geometry on the running experience. It's rather minimal. The On Cloudmonster Hyper have a 6mm drop with a size 45 EU weighing 290 grams, and considering the amount of cushioning and the overall bulky look, this is a perfectly acceptable result, especially since you don't feel that weight too much during the run. But how do these shoes perform when running? My first impression was so-so. I wasn't really sold on the firmness of the midsole. I felt like there was a lack of that wow factor in accelerations. I didn't see a big difference between the Hypers and, say, the New Balance Rebel V4, which are considerably cheaper. However, with each subsequent run, I became more convinced by this midsole. In fact, running in the Hypers started to become enjoyable for me. These shoes are just very comfortable for easy runs, and the specific cushioning makes my legs not tire out as much as with, let's say, softer cushioning. The fit of the Hypers to my foot is almost perfect. My foot doesn't slide around inside the shoe, nothing wraps, and I also feel that for neutral shoes, there's not much stability issue here. On faster training runs, you can feel that the Helion HF foam pushes you forward, of course with the caveat that you land on the front part of your foot, although because there's still some regular Helion foam under it, this effect isn't as strong as in standard racing shoes. And that surprised me a bit, because if there was just P-Bax foam here in the front, the super aspect of these super trainers would be much more noticeable. However, I also understand that having less cushioning in the front of the shoe might be a drawback for some other people, so they needed to choose something. And I know, I'm repeating myself, but this shoe only makes sense for mid or front foot runners. When I landed on my heel, I felt like I was in a standard trainers, and those you can definitely get much cheaper than for 220 or 230 euros, which is the official price of the Hypers. Interestingly, even when landing on the midfoot, sometimes I felt like something was missing. It all depends on where exactly we land. If it's on the junction of the two foams, which is somewhere around here, then the sensations are rather typical training shoe, not like super shoe. If we land on the Helion HF foam, then we enter the territory of training/racing shoe with more responsive sensations. During workouts on the track, intervals or longer tempo runs, the combination of these two technologies worked very well for me. I felt comfortable, but I also felt that the shoe helped me run faster. Of course, it's not about the shoe running for me, but rather about most of the power put into striking the ground, returning to us, which improves takeoff and maintains running dynamics. To sum up, the On Cloudmonster Hyper initially didn't convince me, but after a dozen or so runs, I can honestly say I was wrong. These are really decent daily trainers, which thanks to the use of the Helion HF foam in the front of the shoe can also be used for races. Is it justified to call these shoes super trainers? Judging by the technologies, absolutely yes. And in terms of running experience, here I would be a bit more skeptical, because I feel like the benefit from the P-Bax foam isn't that big to really distinguish the Hypers significantly from other standard training shoes, because compared to the super trainers of the competition, they perform just okay. They can mainly compete with them in terms of price. They are really good daily trainers, but unfortunately are really average super trainers. However, if you value premium materials and craftsmanship, and as well as substantial but not overly intrusive cushioning, then the On Cloudmonster Hyper could be a good choice. And of course, they'll also be a good choice for fans of the On brand, but I guess I won't surprise anyone there. And that's it for today. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this hype around super trainers. Is it hot or not? And thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. See ya!